very last one. You can finish it however you want to. We say, I came, I saw, I conquered. So I'm asking you, you came, you saw.
I worked hard.
We are having a chat with outgoing Finance Minister, Honorable Dr. Nigel Clarke. He will resign his position tonight, Tuesday, and take up his position as Deputy Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund. Thank you so much, Minister. So much has been said. So much more is to be said, because I don't think your story is over. Perhaps this is maybe the midpoint of your story as a servant of the people, and you go to the IMF, where your audience will now be a worldwide audience, and Jamaica will write your history, and perhaps even the world will write your history in time to come. But before that book is finished, there's a lot about you that I don't think many persons know, and I think that they should, because they need to know who we are losing. And I wanted to start maybe at the beginning, as a little boy. Having watched the documentary, I heard that you were a banker. You were the holder of your friends' allowances when they came to Monroe High School, where you went to. What in your early childhood made you see that financial accounting and also accountability as something that everyone needs to keep tabs on?
That story that was related by my very, very good friend, it just happened organically. We would have been, I think it started when I was in second form, I think, or second or third form. And it's, Monroe is a city on a hill. It's its own ecosystem that is away from everything else. And you're sent there by your parents, and you're not going to see them for several weeks. For some people who are lucky, you see them in 4 weeks, but for others, you don't see them for the entire term or for the half term. And you're given an amount of money to last you through the term, and invariably, some people finish it, very quickly. And so that system just evolved as a way of making sure that if you're inclined to run with it early in the term, this was a way of making sure that you didn't, And so the system has evolved. It was just a little diary that I had, those, the thin ones.
Yes. Little ledger books.
The ledger book,
Yes.
right. And I would just write, people's name and the amounts in them.
What did that teach you about the personalities of people on a whole? Or when you were doing that, did that even occur to you that people are like that? Some will spend what they have in no time. Others will, pinch a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing about a boarding school is that, you are, certainly you didn't have distractions like telephones and iPad and Twitter and Facebook and so on. You're sequestered in this full service community of varying types of people. So one thing you learn, or certainly I learned, that one of the biggest advantages for me, or what I came away from that experience with, is just learning to get on with a wide variety of people. Yeah, because there's no escape. You're stuck there. You have a fight, you have a quarrel, there's nowhere to run. You can't run home in the evening and come back the next day. You're living in that environment. And for me, that inculcated an ability to get on with a lot of people, a lot of different kinds of people, you know. And so that is something that, you know, I can get on with the full spectrum of individuals. And in regard to the specific question that you asked, yes, you're in a living residential community, and you observe the spectrum of personalities and of human attitudes to things. And with respect to money, the spectrum of human attitudes to the use of resources.
How much of that did you see manifesting into your job as finance minister?
I wouldn't want to sort of overdo it or to make too much of it, but I would say that I would have grown up with an appreciation of money and the value of money. Particularly because you would get this money at the start of the term from your parents. And you had to manage it. When you go to day school, you get lunch money every day or every week, you know. For me at Monroe and for my compatriots there, you get the money for the term or for the half term. And you have to manage it over the period of time. So yes, you don't rush out the first week when we used to call them totos, when the freshly baked totos are out, and indulge because you know that next week you're going to need as well, and the week after. So yes, it would have been an early introduction to managing small amounts of resources on your own from age 10. And I think that has certainly been a feature of my life, you know, just being on my own from an early age.
Actually, I hear you talking about balancing a budget.
Yes, there we go, yes.
I want to go a little bit back though. What games did you play as a boy?
High school? I'll give you the high school.
No, when you were little. What you're in the siblings?
We would play. There are a lot of games that were popular. As I said, I went to my full story. I went to Faith Simpson Prep, which was the that's the preschool. I went to St. Andrew Prep until, as I've said before in another interview, until the third child came, and my parents couldn't afford to send 3 kids to prep school. So I ended up going to St. Richard's Primary from the 3rd grade, and took my common entrance from there. If I were the game, you talk about games, not sports, but games, we'd play money football.
Yeah.
Right? Where
you on the board.
You get the fudge stick, eat off the fudge, right? And you have the stick, you wash the stick and you clean it, you know, the fudge stick. And you have, I can't remember the denominations now, but you have a denomination, say a 20 cents, and you have a 5 cents is the ball. And you have your goal, he has his goal, and you play money football. Your man, which is a coin, hits the ball. Okay. And the idea is to get the ball in the goal. And we'd play money football all day long.
You knew you were gambling? Huh? You knew you were gambling?
No, not really gambling, but you know, that was a huge pastime. Yes. We'd also make up stuff. We would get cards. I don't know if you've ever seen this. I mean, this was very popular. And we'd play football. I don't know what it's called. You'd make the men, they're like this, right? And I don't know if anybody can relate to what I'm saying. These would be the men on the board. So this is this is your defense, right? Right. And you'd have 11 of these on the board. Right. And then you'd get a piece of foil that you would roll up and make into a ball. Okay. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. I don't know if I have anything that can replicate it here. But basically, this is the movement you would do, right? And it would cause the ball to move. And that's how you would dribble. Oh. But if the ball got out of your control, it would be your opponent. And then you would set up a shot now, and you go, bam, go for the goal. And you'd have 11, and your opponent would have 11. And you would do all these things where you would take the corner to try and get the kick. It's a pity I don't have a piece of foil. I'm going to take a piece of paper just to demonstrate it for you. You do all kind of things to try and try and improve the performance of your piece, of your men on the board. So we'd have, say it would be like this. Let me show you. It'd be like, right? And you go, and then now to score a goal now, you do something like this. And you put it in the corner, and some people would like turn this up now because they have a like kick up on them foot, and then do something like this, and they go, BAM!
Wow. Wow.
Goal. So we would play football like this on the board. You'd make 11 men like this, or it might be 5 or whatever, whatever the size of the team. You would have your side, you would dribble, and you set up the goal, and you bam, go for, and you have your little goal. So that was very, very popular game back in primary school.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how would your opponent get the ball?
You get the ball if you made a mistake, if you over dribbled, for example. You're dribbling and then the ball, let's say he's here, and you're trying to dribble past him and the ball ended up there. Then it's his turn.
Oh.
And then he would come and he would
and
try to
go
go around and go towards your goal. Yes.
Okay.
That was a very popular game.
Wow. Was it some version of chess?
No, this is football on a table. This is
just
pure boys having fun.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you teach your children to play games?
Yes.
What games?
Well, they got introduced to chess independent of me, meaning the first time that they, got introduced to it. But I certainly would have encouraged it and supported it and developed it and taught them myself.
Okay.
So, of course, chess, absolutely. As a game of strategy, a game of tactics, as I said before, it's learning how to compete, right, by being civil. It's a very aggressive game. You're right in front of the other person, and you're 12 inches away from them.
Yes.
And they know you're trying to defeat them.
Yes. Because they're trying to do the same
Because they're trying to do the same to you.
Yes.
But yet you're civil.
Yes.
It teaches you very valuable lessons. Yeah? And how to gracefully lose and win with humility as well. I think poker is a great game. I teach my kids poker.
I know nothing about poker.
Oh, no, poker is a very important game. Not to win money,
Yes.
but it's a game of risk and a game of chance. And managing risk is a key part of life. And
key part of being the job as Minister of Finance.
Yes. And so I an early introduction to risk and as well learning, to play the cards that you're dealt, right? You can have a hand and, somebody else can play that hand really, really well. You have to know how to play to maximize what you have.
Yeah.
And, games like poker are incredible at that.
You think more Jamaican fathers, those who are capable, should, teach their children, if they can, games like chess and games that will cause their children and even themselves to think more and have, just have children with better coping skills so that nobody not looking down on anybody just because there is a disagreement?
Yes, it's well documented that solving disputes amicably is something that we have a societal problem with. And the only way to address that, I believe, is having children being introduced to ways of winning and losing without descending into acrimony. And that's why education has to be much more than ABC and your times table. Education involves the full socio-cultural, emotional, psychological development of children. And that component of education is garnered mostly through co-curricular or extracurricular activities. Those are not necessarily as easily developed in the classroom.
Yes.
And that's why participation in sports, in music, in endeavors in a structured way are so important. And that's the real differentiator, if you think about it, between uptown and downtown. Right? Uptown, broadly speaking, the school day does not end at 2 o'clock. Between 2 o'clock and when parents get home at 6, kids are fully involved in a range of activities, swimming or dancing or soccer or chess or table tennis or lawn tennis. And it is through those activities, winning and losing, starting and stopping, being unfairly treated, somebody, gave a point that shouldn't have been given, right? Working together in a team, individual excellence towards a team goal, etc. It is participation in those range of activities that fully develops the human being. And one of the challenges is that many children grow up without those opportunities. School ends at 2 and you're on your own and you don't have structured opportunities. For some, that is okay and they make their way through. But on a population scale, it leads to challenges.
Your dad, how much daddy time did you give up because of service to Jamaica?
Yeah, that would have been sort of my number one, consideration kind of coming in. But I think, and it's not for me to say, it's more for my kids to say, but I think that I have managed to, maintain that as an ultimate priority, right? And I have sort of found ways by taking other things out to maintain a strong presence in the life of my children.
Would they say that you're a good dad?
No, you have to ask them that.
Okay.
That's not something I would want to comment on. Yeah.
Okay. You're also a husband.
I've tried to be a good dad. Yeah.
Yeah. You're also a husband. How much does politics take away from the personal relationships of politicians, elected representatives?
The time commitments are harsh. You are working all the time. In our system, in ministerial duties, you have 2 jobs really. You're constantly on, even if you're at home, you're constantly on the phone, constantly on your text, email, WhatsApp. And then even if you're not on those devices, your mind is still there.
Yes.
So, yeah, one can't be successful in this domain without a hugely supportive spouse. It's impossible. And you definitely give something up.
The documentary also spoke to your involvement with the orchestra and chess. Where are those now? Are they done? Would you like to see them continue? Would you like to see somebody else take it on?
Yeah, so I've done not just music and chess. I mean, I did TEDx. Your archives are full with the stuff I've done in TEDx. I didn't feel comfortable talking about it but you can look that up for yourself. So I have been involved in a range of activities where I have sought to, what I have in common is public education. I've been public education oriented, increasing the awareness and the knowledge base and the experience of Jamaicans where that would not normally be accessible. So with respect to music, I co-founded a program that operated for 10 years between 2009 and 2008 and 2018 when I So I was chairman of it for a period of 10 years. And involved in using music as a tool for social change. It, even when I demitted office as chairman, it continued until COVID, and it was out for the 2 years of COVID, and hasn't resumed, but I'm confident that it will, under a new people will succeed me. Through the benefaction of individuals and corporations, institutions, foundations, etc., we are able over time to procure over 300 instruments, brass instruments, woodwind instruments, percussion instruments, and string instruments. And we had 6 centers in Kingston and Spanish Town and St. Catherine, and satellite centers in other parts, in Portland. And then we had an array of music teachers, many of whom were students at Edna Manley, or some of them were lecturers at Edna Manley.
Yes.
And we had a stipend system where we'd pay them on an hourly basis to teach. And they would go in after school, and each center would have certain days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. And the centers were in, all parts of, it was not, these centers were in not, this is way pre-politics. So it's not based on, in PNP areas and GLP areas. Had centers in East Kingston, had one in Central Kingston, Norman Manley High School, had Kingston College, had at St. Andrew Technical, had at Wynwood Primary,
Wynwood
had
Road.
At San Diego, at different places. And it was just a very fulfilling experience.
Okay. Again, in the docu-series, when you were asked about COVID, I think I saw a tinge of sadness, but also you said COVID was something else. And I wanted to, would you explain what was the something else? Was it a personal something else or a professional something else?
No, it was just an overwhelming, forceful economic calamity. And when you ask me about it, I can only do what just comes to mind. Is when I realized that, for me, the moment when I realized that the airports would have to be closed, I felt like somebody in the deep end of a pool, and you're trying to wave, don't close the airport, and you're sinking.
Yes.
Because I knew immediately what that meant. Nobody thought that we could ever survive a closure of the tourism industry. That's where all our foreign exchange comes from.
Yes.
So it was just it was, and that is what I just recall the macro pressures of that time, which are just absolutely significant. There's $4 billion of tourism inflows that come in every year. $4 billion, which dried up. So then you have two sides. You have your fiscal side, which is your revenues and expenditure. And then you have your external side, which is your foreign exchange coming in and foreign exchange going out. And both of those were seriously impaired. Yeah? And then a tinge of sadness for me, because on the macro side I'm talking about here,
Yes.
clearly a tinge of sadness because of all of the human suffering and the death and it was terrible human costs. Macroeconomically speaking, I had some amazing plans.
That was my next question.
And that was the sadness, because remember that we were harvesting resources, right? I had done the largest IPO in Jamaica's history was Wigton.
Yes.
And through Wigton, we were able to reap a lot of resources. We sold the shares. Wigton had a $50 million loan from Petrocaribe that when it became private, it had to privatize. So Wigton raised money from banks and paid back Petrocaribe, which is the government. So that was $50 million on top of the equity that we sold, right? And on top of other flows. So huge inflows coming in. The Trans-Jamaica transaction, which is a transaction that is in need of, a lot of these transactions should be, if I dare say it, should be case studies. That was a very complicated one. And we were able to, because you remember, Trans-Jamaica, the shares were owned by the overseas players who decided that they wanted to leave.
Yes.
And the government, for whatever reasons, needed to make sure that this landed in proper hands. So we did a back-to-back transaction. That's something you do in the private sector. Government never does back. Where what we did was we bought Trans-Jamaica, and within 4 months or less, sold it to the Jamaican people by a public offering. Right? So we had a bridge loan. So what you do, you get a bridge loan from a bank that says, look, we're buying this asset, we're going to sell it in 4 months and pay you back. And then, so it was very complicated. But through Trans-Jamaica, we got the sale of the equity. We got a dividend that they paid before the company went public. And we got some repayment of debt. So what we got from Wigton and Trans-Jamaica was huge, between those two, and Trans-Jamaica became the largest IPO in Jamaica. Between those two transactions, we'd have hauled in, I don't remember, I don't have the precise details, but 30, 40 billion between Trans-Jamaica and Wigton. All combined, not just from the equity, but from the other components of the transaction, right? 30, 40 billion dollars. And then from fiscal overperformance, we had $75 billion of resources sitting down that we were had plans to develop the country, to create fiscal space by accelerating debt pay down. And the sadness comes, I just remember how I felt when I realized that I couldn't use those proceeds for that.
Yes.
They had to be used to support the economy. The good thing is that because we had those proceeds, we were able to intervene.
Yes.
We were able to withstand the shock to revenues, where revenues declined considerably, and we were able to accommodate the additional expenses and still run only a 3% deficit, whereas in the region, countries were running 8% and 9% deficits. That's only because we had at the time, we had at least 3% of GDP in resources on hand. But it kind of teaches a lesson, in Jamaica, that you can't always have buffers, always have reserves. It's very important. Jamaica is just too open to economic shock.
Some of the plans that you had for that period, so we can't walk back COVID, it happened. But if it didn't, what would be some of those plans? Well,
we essentially lost 3 years of public investment, of capital programs, because of the economic effect, and also because of the policy diversion, right? The policy focus was on recovery from COVID, which we achieved and achieved in quick time. But that's where we were focused. That's where the cabinet time was. That's where ministerial time was. And, in the game of politics and so on, you can't go to the electorate and say, hey,
Yes.
you remember COVID, we lost 3 years, you have to give us something for that.
Yes.
Nobody
There are
is
no
going to.
blighs.
No, there's no blighs. Nobody's
Yes.
going to remember that.
Yes.
But simple examples would be, we'd have had the 100 garbage trucks 2 years earlier. Mm-hmm. We would have had the 300 buses 3 years earlier, or 2 years earlier, right?
All right. I want to shift a little bit now to politics and culture. So you've been back in Jamaica, worked across private and public sectors since you've come back from your studies overseas. How much has Jamaica's political culture changed from when you were at university, for example? Well, you did mathematics. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how many political and sociology courses you would have done throughout your studies, but how much have you seen a change in Jamaica's political culture over the time that you've come back and now that you're leaving?
That's a good question. It's probably better for somebody who is not involved in the political system. Their comment on it might be more valuable than mine from a particular perspective. But what I will say, something that we have in common with the rest of the world, is that democratic politics has not adjusted to the realities of social media.
True.
Democratic politics around the world has changed considerably with the advent of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the rest of those aggregators. In a number of ways. It has resulted in a multiplicity of media outlets, for want of a better phrase, with less reliability and accuracy, and there's no more arbiter of truth. Mm-hmm. And traditional media they themselves don't know how to respond, and some have responded by trying to sort of compete. Mm-hmm. And all of this, I think, has presented tremendous challenges to democracies around the world and if you see the large countries struggling with it, Jamaica as well is struggling too.
Mm-hmm. Isn't there a danger, though, when, let's say in a country like Jamaica, where we have so many different platforms out there, everybody is out there, there are no arbiters out there, so it's anything goes. That should say more, I'm not sure if it's more knowledge-based, because a lot of rubbish is said out there. But how does that account for the growing voter apathy with more information and more avenues out there for persons to contact?
I think that, and again, we tend to think of Jamaica as a little island that we're not, but what we're experiencing is a part of a global experience. Mm-hmm. Rather than being a uniting force, what we've seen since about 2009, when these platforms began to emerge, is greater divisions within societies and within countries, where you get information that reinforces your pre-held opinion. And as a result, you become firmer and firmer in your conviction, and the other person becomes firmer and firmer in her conviction. So I think the voter apathy we can talk about as a separate matter, but how best to continue to benefit from the tremendous advantages that this kind of connectivity has allowed, right? Connectivity between individuals and among individuals, while having systems that ensure that things that are untrue don't take root. That's a global
That's the
challenge.
danger.
That's
Yes,
a global
that's
challenge.
global.
That's a global.
Yes.
That's bigger than Jamaica.
Yes.
But
I mean, that's playing out now.
it's playing out.
Yes.
Exactly. It
Yes.
played out in previous cycles as well.
Yes. Yes.
And at some point, we have to find a way to sort it out.
Yes.
Small countries don't have a chance, whereas the big countries have, institutions that are well developed and so on. This business of lies and rumors and so on taking root in the country, spread by, these using these technologies, is a long-term problem for our democracy and one that we have to be concerned about. Voter apathy, though, in Jamaica.
But just before you go to that, though, so is that a danger for political cultures going forward?
It's a danger in democratic societies, yes, because at the end of the day, in a democracy, it is the average citizen who counts. It was a famous speech by Theodore Roosevelt at the Sorbonne in Paris. And the speech was called "The Man in the Arena." And in that speech, which was given nearly 100 years ago, Theodore Roosevelt made the point that in a democracy, it is the average citizen who counts. In a totalitarian system, or in the opposites of democracy, let us use that as a broad category, you just need the leaders to be benevolent and all-wise, and the society's trajectory will be positive. In a democracy, we depend on each individual, right, to be consuming information and to be making decisions. So if people don't have access to accurate information, and it's the people who make decisions, and here I'm going beyond just electoral decisions, but just decisions on a daily basis, then that country's trajectory is going to be suboptimal. I mean, there's definitely room for political discourse and to be more substantive than it is, or than it has been. There's definitely room for political parties to be more engaged in policy and in the development of policy. There's a huge scope for growth in those areas that can only serve Jamaica. Politicians alone can't do it, right? But it requires leadership to bring people along. But it's not just what you do in Parliament that's going to make the difference. You're going to have to form coalitions across the society in a way that can move the country forward.
If you never return to Jamaica, and I mean on a permanent basis, now, how would you want Jamaica to remember you?
Look, Erica, Jamaica has given me so much. I'm happy and grateful that I had the opportunity to serve and to contribute to Jamaica. I'm not focused on things like that.
Okay. Regrets? What regrets, if any, do you have?
I have things that I would have hoped, might have turned out differently and so forth, but maybe it's too early for me to reflect on that. At this point in time, I don't have any I could think about.
Okay. Are you disappointed, or did you feel that your critics were too hard on you with respect to some of the commentary that, has been written about your tenure?
Look, I am someone I've engaged people who criticize. I learn a lot from them. I have been so focused on getting things done, Erica. I mean, I think you can see that for yourself. I'm very much focused. I'm very results-oriented and very focused on what I have to do.
Okay. Are you a computer book reading person, or you are a take a book and lie down in bed and read type of person?
No, I'm not yet in the digital reading.
Okay.
Apart from newspapers.
Okay.
But I haven't graduated yet to reading a book on a Kindle, though I have acquired a Kindle. Mm-hmm. I like the physical thing,
okay.
You know. I hope that's not a reflection of aging. You know, the definition of aging is not the chronological.
I understand. I know.
It's your inability to transition.
And the things you do.
Exactly,
yes.
the things you do. So
yeah, well, you have lots of company.
I'm going to work on it, but for the time being, I like the physical book.
Okay.
Yeah.
What book would I find on your night table?
Well, I have a lot of books. That's one thing I have. I mean,
Give me a few.
Huh?
Give me a few. What are they about?
Oh, I have a ton of books. I have a lot of biographies. I'm big into biographies. I have lots of books on, you know, economics and politics and lots of books in areas of, you know, that's too personal for me.
Okay.
Seriously. I have a huge collection of books. Huge. But
understood.
Yeah.
Corgote or Oxdale? Or both?
You know, I gave up eating meat. Yes. So I would say snapper.
Okay.
Right?
Roast or steam?
It depends on my mood.
Okay.
I love a steam snapper with okra and, you know, all of the seasoned well in advance. Love that. Very, very much. I have that at least once a week.
Okay.
For lunch. And I occasionally, just because fried, not supposed to be good for you, but I love it still. So I try to minimize the number of times, but a fried fish with some bami, heaven.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, good St. Elizabeth fried fish and bami. I know there.
Exactly.
I'm from adjoining Manchester. If there was a major catastrophe and all your family were together and you had a choice to save
Lord God.
some people,
No, Erica.
who would you save?
God forbid.
Okay, all right.
God forbid.
All right, so I leave that
Yes,
out.
leave that one out.
So I know that you like classical music. What other genres do you like? I hear you can dance dancehall. Somebody told me that.
I'm Jamaican. What do you
Yes.
think? I grew up in Jamaica.
yes.
You know, sometimes we try to pigeonhole people. We're
Yes.
360 degrees, complex human beings.
Yes.
I am a huge dancehall fan. I love dancehall. I love hip hop. I love R&B. And I am getting into other genres as well. You know, just getting exposed to other things. But yes, music is very, very important to me. Music plays a huge role in my life. Yeah.
Do you often find yourself looking through the windows for inspiration?
Absolutely.
Yes, I saw that a couple of
stand up
times.
and I look through that all the time.
Yes.
All the time. Look all the time. Sometimes I'm back those windows. Sometimes I'm over these windows. It's a very inspiring view.
Do you get different kinds of inspiration depending on which angle you look at?
Well, the days differ
Okay.
tremendously, and I get to see the full, full spectrum of difference. You know, cloudy days when it's full blue, days when it's, gray and raining. But yeah, I like to observe the development. You know, the good vantage point to which to see, and the landscape has changed considerably since I've been here.
Very last one. You can finish it however you want to. We say, I came, I saw, I conquered. So I'm asking you, you came, you saw.
I worked hard.